I'm like, what flower looks like a butthole? Even though I still know,
not where my brain
and even though I know that's not what she wants. Anus is a strong word.
Right.
You know, it's not something you hear every day. There's no reason why you shouldn't have Jopi. How do you not know about this plant? I'm looking for it. He's like, they don't know what I'm talking.
Looking for
I'm looking here.
All right. So should I start or do you want to start?
All right. Yeah.
Last week didn't go so well.
Oh my God, you guys, seriously, I am sick of listening to you guys try to figure out who's starting every week, so I'm going to do it. This is Nick Farringdon and Ethan Wise, and this is the Take It or Leave It podcast. You Hoya huggers. There. Are we done? Are we good? Cool.
Okay.
So can we move on now? That'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, hon.
I guess. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Thanks.
that's my wife, and she's
Here.
She's directing the flow on this one. Thanks.
Whether we like it or not.
Yeah. Well.
You can take that or leave it.
Oh. Okay. Oh. We might have some internship positions available.
Yeah. Unpaid.
Do I get to go get the juice boxes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want a curly
With your
straw?
money.
Ah, good.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
we will
I would
need-
like a crazy straw.
You will need to buy us coffee before every podcast,
Yep.
Okay.
and then listen to us give you harsh critiques.
While I appreciate the offer, I respectfully decline.
Okay. I respect that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to end up bringing you juice anyway, and we all know it.
I respect you less now.
Lindsay, 1 second. We're gonna chat really quick. Should we
I
fire
don't think
her?
she's working out.
Yeah. Should we let her go?
A little too direct.
Ooh, yeah. A little aggressive.
I
Air
don't
quotes.
feel like she should have jumped in and done the intro the way that she did on
Yeah,
day one.
and totally out of the blue. She kind of like pushed you aside and started using your mic and stuff.
I was very surprised by that.
Yeah. So do we go ahead and do we just tell her we're going to move on to a different candidate?
I think she's still listening.
Oh, shoot. Oh, she has headphones on.
Oh,
Did she hear the whole thing?
have you been here the whole time?
Do you
hon?
think she heard the whole thing?
She heard the whole thing.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Well,
Good
well,
luck with
I guess
that.
we're going to get to the
we
to
got
the
a great episode.
Yep.
How do we get her to leave?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think, do we need to go to a commercial break?
Yep. Okay, guys. Well, hey, hon, do you hear your phone?
Well, that depends. Is your refrigerator running?
Ooh.
Well, let's get on to our normal episode.
Well, on that note,
On that note, we are going to get right on into it since
Yeah.
we don't have to piss around with figuring out who's going to intro this episode.
I guess not. Because some people don't want us
to get to the point. You know, I don't even think she's a Patreon subscriber.
Actually, I can verify she is not.
Okay.
We do not have any of $6 from her.
Yeah.
So,
Bossing us around like that.
yeah, just taking your mic from you like that.
Hmm.
So you found this topic. We were searching through some various green industry magazines.
This is what we do for
publications
fun.
Yeah.
You know, some people
Yeah.
go to bars
Right.
and get smashed.
Yep.
And some people go and play sports balls. And we sit and read horticulture
Yeah.
magazines.
We flip through. We flip
the
through.
centerfold spreads. Ow!
Yeah. Ooh, new insecticidal spray. Ooh.
Look at those roots.
But so on our Sunday night, we were perusing through copies of Inside Grower magazine,
Mm-hmm.
as one does,
Mm-hmm.
and found this short little snippet, which Ethan is just going to read the whole snippet to you guys because it's just a little section of kind of an intro area of the front of this.
Is Inside
magazine.
Grower available to civilians? Or do you have to have a horticulture business or a business in general to be able to subscribe to this magazine?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever subscribed to them. I think they just saw like, oh, this is a horticulture related, or maybe one of my vendors sold my information or something. I get them all the time. All the hort publications.
I
get
must
them all
not
the
be
time.
cool enough in the horticulture world to receive them yet.
Oh, huh. I wonder if I bet one of my wholesale vendors probably.
Are you going to sell my information?
Yeah, I'll sell. I'll sell
pay it
your
forward.
information. Yeah. Right. So you can start getting free magazines.
Cool.
To pile up.
Yeah. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But so we found this short little paragraph here, and it kind of led you to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole.
Doesn't take much to do that.
True. Yeah, with plant stuff.
Yeah.
Or stuff.
Give me 3 sentences about something in the industry that makes me go, huh, and I'm going to go digging down that hole.
Yep. And so you want to go ahead and read, well, one, should we tell them what it is we're talking about? Probably.
Biochar.
Yeah, biochar. Kind of something that's been
It's not new.
But it's kind of like a fringy kind of,
but it's building
less
momentum.
mainstream. Yeah, kind of like how mycorrhiza and stuff like that as a soil additive was a little less well known.
And now it's so
10 years ago or
common, and
whatever.
I think that's maybe the trajectory for biochar is the same way that mycorrhiza has,
or like worm castings,
Exactly.
or some of those like random soil
you used to
additive
like when worm
things.
castings were thinking like when mycorrhiza, you would buy like large quantities of things for large garden areas or crop fields, and now you can buy little bags of
like it's
worm
available
castings
to a retail kind of size.
Right. And that's, and you might have already seen biochar in a garden center already in a small bag. But I think where a lot of people who are actively using it now are using it on a much larger scale, like many cubic yards or tons of it to then be applied to their fields, whatever they're trying to grow, whether it's in wooded natural areas or crop fields, I think is still the most popular use of it right now.
And you want to go ahead and kind of give them an idea of exactly what that is?
Yeah. So I'll describe what biochar, or give the definition of biochar, and then read this little snippet and then go into a little bit more of what it is that biochar is supposed to do for your soil. So biochar, and this is from the Tennessee Extension Office, it'll be an article that is in the links for this episode. Biochar is a charcoal-like material that is produced from plant materials such as grass, agricultural, and forest residues that are decomposed at high temperatures. So in many ways, it's charcoal, but it's not quite the same way.
Yeah. There's a particular type of plant material that they're using depending on what your goal is from that type of biochar.
And there's different temperatures that they might cook it at too. And I won't go too much in depth with it because that doesn't really affect us for knowing that. But like, you're going to char your grass, if you harvest a bunch of forest grass to then turn into biochar to make a more fine, since that's a smaller area, and then you cook it down and it reduces its surface area, it's a much finer biochar if you use something like a grass versus using wood chips from a tree, which makes a much more chunkier option. And so I guess the
nutrient profile
is
among
different.
Other components,
some things
is
are more available than others, and apparently there's some more that's over my head, at least as of right now, where depending on what it is that you want to get out of the biochar, if you talk to the right people, the people who sell and create this stuff, they can sell you or narrow down the right biochar made from whatever material they're making it from to benefit what it is that you're trying to accomplish from your growing space. Whether you're trying to get specific nutrients available to your plants, you're trying to reduce the absorption of toxic material that is
like
in the
heavy
soil,
metals,
right, into the plants, or you're trying to just increase the microbial life of your plants. Are you trying to grow crops? Are you trying to rehabilitate a forested area? There's different biochars that might have a different or more rapid or slow response to that area that might be more fine-tuned to your specific need of biochar. I found that
essentially
kind of interesting.
It's being used as a soil additive in relatively small percentages. What'd you see? Quite a bit, like 5%,
right? So
give or take.
Yeah, anywhere between 1% and 5% they've seen changes.
So it's a pretty small amount
in fact,
overall.
they talk about that in specific with the heavy metal reduction.
Okay, sure.
So anyway, so now we'll go into what it was that encouraged me to go a little bit more in depth to be able to talk to people about. And oh wow, Nick moved my microphone a little bit and now I sound way better. So sorry for the first 10 minutes of this podcast where I found it a little bit less clear. Hopefully I sound way more professional now. Anyway, so this is the article, and it's just a little snippet in this Inside Grower magazine, page 6 of the February 2022 Inside Grower magazine. And usually in this magazine, it's common for the first couple of pages to just be like these little intro stories all across the horticultural world. But they refer to this section as just like the insider, and it's just got 5 to a dozen little snippet stories of what's happening in the industry.
Editorial staff or something like that. There's no particular
author
associated with
editorial
this.
Staff finds interesting stories and sheds some light on them, giving you the opportunity, like what I'm doing, to further research it if you're interested. So this one here, titled simply Biochar and Lead. New research out of the University of Siena in Italy indicates that amending soil with biochar can reduce the availability of lead and thus reduce its uptake in lettuce. In the study, lettuce was grown in lead-contaminated soils in several scenarios, including with 5% biochar, without biochar, and again in soilless systems with 1% biochar and without biochar. Plants grown in the biochar-amended soil saw a 50% reduction in the accumulation of lead in the leaves, while hydroponically grown lettuce plants with biochar had an even higher reduction at 80%. So very fascinating. And then the author stated that increased cation exchange capacity and pH likely limited the bioavailability of the lead. And the cation exchange capacity is something that has very, very, very briefly and usually in like a joking manner come up in this podcast, because we've kind of actively tried to avoid talking about it, because unless you're really, really nerdy into the soil science and what's happening below the surface, which is where all of the action is happening, or not all the action, but a majority of the action is happening below the surface. And what you are seeing above ground is directly associated to what's happening below ground. And the cation exchange capacity, also just commonly referred to as CEC, is, to break it down into layman's terms, is how nutrients are absorbed by the plant. And they become absorbed as being a positive ion, which is what a cation is. And certain nutrients are made available when they're in a cation state, like magnesium or potassium. They can then be absorbed by the plant. And so ways that you can increase the cation exchange capacity in your soil are by adding certain things to the soil, usually things that have some sort of bio nature to them, whether it's compost or manure or biochar.
Essentially acting as kind of a carrier,
kind of like a carrier or conduit or something
Sure.
like that, to allow for nutrients to become available to the plant. And like I said, it's a very nerdy conversation, and maybe a professor with a doctorate or a master's who has 20 years in the field or 40 years in the field
in a research capacity,
right, might be able to break it down into a more palatable way. But even though I understand it, it's maybe not something that I feel confident enough in my ability to describe it in not a boring way.
Sure.
Even though it is a very important process for the plant, most people, probably the average person listening,
More
just needs to
technical
know
than for
that
our purpose. Yeah.
nutrients are in the soil and they get and they're absorbed by our plant. That's what fertilizer is.
Right.
So that all being said, what we know about biochar and what we believe it to do in the soil is, like I said, increasing the cation exchange capacity, which, to just narrow that down, is helping plants absorb more and or the right nutrients from the soil. Increasing the surface area of the bio or the microbial life in the soil. So you're giving this nice, rich, organic material and you're putting in the soil, and in that process.
And it's a heavily carbon
right
with biochar. And so it's relatively inert, but also very porous. And I think that's where the kind of that surface area thing comes into play.
Correct. Increasing the pH of the soil. So very helpful for highly acidic areas. And if the pH is too acidic, then it can dramatically affect the growth of plants and also the absorption of nutrients. And we've touched on that before as far as fertilizing goes, that you might have all the nutrients you need to in your soil.
Now, is it saying increase the pH as in making the soil more basic?
Right.
Ah, okay.
And I think that has to do with the char effect. If you add too much ash, sometimes if you're doing your own compost pile, and some people might add ash from like a fire pit or something into their compost pile. While you can do that in small amounts, excessive ash will raise and dramatically increase the pH of your soil. So anything in any extreme, whether it's too acidic or too alkaline, you start to grow outside of the range for most plants to be happy in. There's a lot of plants that can thrive in acidic soils. Some plants that we associate here in the Midwest as annuals can tolerate high acidic soils. Things like hydrangeas can very much tolerate it. Sometimes maples tend to be a little bit happier in a more acidic environment.
Get less chlorosis.
Exactly, which we've discussed before, primarily being a nutrient deficiency of iron, because if the pH is too high, iron cannot be absorbed, and that is due to the cation exchange capacity. Anyway, so yeah, the biochar can raise the pH of the soil, which depending on the environment can allow for more nutrients to become available to the plants. And then also the biochar is believed to enhance the water holding capacity of that soil. So often, if you have a really dry area that just you're having a really hard time keeping plants alive in this area, some people might recommend to use biochar in that given area simply to help with moisture retention. So all kinds of uses for it, and it is becoming more available in small doses as a soil additive to mix in with your containers or your raised garden beds, or maybe even a little bit in your houseplant containers, just because of what it can do for your plants.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and there's a lot more
on top of really positive benefits like we saw with the heavy metals referenced in this little snippet from Inside Grower. Especially if you have an area that's known to have a higher or near too high area of heavy metal presence in the soil, and this as an additive can help to reduce the absorption of that heavy metal by the plants, there's a significant benefit there.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the selling points for people that are kind of in the biochar business is, I actually kind of backtrack a little bit. My first introduction to biochar was a few years ago when you and I went to the IGC trade show, which
up in Chicago at Navy Pier.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's a show for people in the horticulture industry, where usually people who are buyers in the field, which since we worked at a retail environment, we were considered buyers, and it gives us an opportunity to interact with wholesale vendors and get to learn more about what product they are selling, and gives them an opportunity to reach a larger audience. And interacted with this gentleman who was representing this particular biochar company. And I remember really liking the idea behind it, but it was so freaking expensive. And I'm thinking why is burnt wood so damn expensive? This doesn't make sense to me. Like you're selling stuff that you just set on fire. And realizing now, many years later, that it's
a little more particular.
Yeah,
than that.
There's much more science involved to it. And it's still, I think, a little bit pricey. I think you really have to.
But especially then, it would be a little bit more kind of fringy of a soil additive.
Yeah, I want to say like this little small bag, would be like $30 or $40 retail. I'm thinking like, how am I going to convince people that they need to drop $40 on this little bag of burnt wood to mix into their yard? I was like, they're going to think I'm selling snake oil. So the idea behind people who are selling the biochar is like, yes, while there might be a price factor to consider in biochar, their mentality is that in the long run, you're saving money. You're saving money in watering. You're saving money in fertilizer. Because if you apply biochar, the right kind of biochar at the right weight and or distribution per the area that you want to amend.
Kind of similar benefit as a soil inoculant with mycorrhiza, beneficial
absolutely.
Bacteria, and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
they
that's
are
their
a little
argument.
they are a little more expensive. They come in a small quantity, but typically, just like biochar that you're applying in single-digit percentages of the volume of your soil. It's kind of like with the soil inoculants with mycorrhiza. It's a very small amount that you're watering in over a broad area. So it's like, yes, you're paying, $35 for this little pouch of powder, but it's like, yeah, but this can
give you a
treat
lot
an
of coverage.
acre of land or whatever. Yeah.
And so that being said, like, okay, yeah, it's expensive, but in the long run, you're saving money on fertilizer application and excessive watering, and your plants are going to be healthier, which means if you're growing crop, you're going to get a bigger harvest, or you're going to see a faster growth, on your newly planted garden bed. So we'll see. And I hope to learn more about this, and I'm sure I will learn more about it as I see it made more readily available.
Overall, though, it seems like can't hurt.
No, yeah, it doesn't seem like there's potentially, unless you overdo it.
Right,
and maybe you over-amend,
your
overdo
pH
the
is
pH,
altered too
exactly.
much. Sure.
So that would maybe be the only concern. And anytime you are using a product to amend the pH of your soil, I highly recommend that you have a soil analysis test done and have that interpreted by a professional, someone who knows how to determine what you need to add to your soil to help your particular situation. Because what you might do for a corn crop field is very different than what you might do in your backyard.
Right.
So that all being said, changing and amending the soil pH is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to accumulate it. And if you're doing it incorrectly or have the wrong information from the get-go and you need to revert what you have done, it is going to take time to do it.
Sure.
So now I feel like kind of getting that nerdy thing off the table and getting that out of the way, we should kind of go off the cuff on something goofy.
Yeah, go for it.
Does that feel right?
Yeah, feels right.
Can I talk about my purpleanus?
You're what now?
Okay, so.
Hey, Ethan, do you hear that?
What?
Oh, it's an ad.
Real quick, thanks for listening to our episode today. You can stay in touch with us by supporting us on Patreon. We are at patreon.com/takeItOrLeafIt.
And we'll have bonus content on Patreon for all of our subscribers there, where you can get extra episodes and snippets from the show that we don't release to all the other platforms.
You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at Take It or Leaf It Pod. And you can also visit our website, takeItOrLeafItPod.com. If you have any questions or comments or any stories you'd like us to research or talk about, or hell, send us a picture of a plant you want us to identify, you can send that information to show@takeItOrLeafItPod.com. You can also follow us on our individual Instagrams. I am at Hortwise, HORTWISE.
And I am at N Farringdon, NFARRINGDON.
Thanks so much. We'll get back to the episode. You got me. Okay, so let me backtrack.
Okay, I'm ready.
And I don't want anyone to think I'm making fun of anyone's accent. That's not the point of it. While there are heavy accents that are involved in these two little stories, I am only going to talk about them in the sense that it's frickin' hilarious that certain words were said the way that they were said. And I did not make either one of these people feel bad for saying certain words the way that they say them.
And you were not picking up what they were putting down.
Neither time. So at a garden center where I worked at, this woman came to me and she had a very thick Eastern, European accent. And she comes up to me and without skipping a beat, comes up and says, "Do you have purpleanus?" And I did not know how to respond to that. There's very little training, life training that you receive on this planet for when someone out of nowhere comes up to you and asks you if you have a bruised butthole. And I knew that I kept, to the best of my ability, I feel pretty confident that I had a strong poker face.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew internally, there's no way she's asking me this. There's no way she's asking me about the color of my butt. And there's something layered in this.
You're trying to process and figure out what this combination of words that's happening is.
While you are in shock.
Yeah.
So, and no one can help you. You know, you're just you're in this boat alone. And it's like, okay, you grab a paddle and I grab a paddle and let's see where we dock.
And let's swim to my purpleanus.
So I ask her again, "I'm sorry, what?" And she doubles down and says, "Purpleanus." And I said, I was like, "So like a perennial?" And she says, "Yes, perennial flower." I was like, okay, we're going somewhere. We're getting somewhere.
Narrowed down to a category.
I could tell she said purple. I understood purple.
Right.
This is a purple flower. It's a perennial.
You're like, anus, anus, anus.
I'm thinking like, what could look like like platycodon? Is like the balloon flower, purple balloon flower look like a butthole? And like now I'm like thinking of what flowers might look like a butthole. And I'm like, I've never trained my mind to look at flowers this way before.
See, your mind just went to butthole. I'm like, what word is going to sound like anus, but isn't?
Yeah. And I'm like, what flower looks like a butthole? Even though I still know.
That's not where my brain was
And even
going.
though I still know that's wrong, I know that's not what she wants. But it's anus is in my brain now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't
you
just.
can't get it. You can't. Yeah.
Anus is a strong word.
Right.
You know, it's not something you hear every day.
It's one that really throws you off.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're walking around the sales yard, and I am bullshitting my way through this conversation, just trying to gauge what it is that she's looking for.
You're like searching for more clues.
Exactly. And we eventually finally get to what she was looking for was purple anise, ANISE, hyssop.
Ah.
One that we referred to previously as agastache and apparently as agostiki. And
Which both of us refuse to pronounce it that way. So we
So-
just say hyssop.
So hyssop is the common name for it, and it's in the mint family. So it has a similarity to catnip or salvia or bee balm, mountain mint.
It has a really nice, strong anise kind of smell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really nice.
And there are several varieties of hyssop. So she was specifically looking for purple anise,
Mhm.
which is a variety of agostiki. But there's all kinds of colors. And that one, obviously, with the name, has a purple flower, but you can find orange flowers and red coral flowers and different shades of purples and pinks.
I used a nice, really light blue one this year
Ooh.
as a replacement for some Biochar that had died, as seems to be the case often in central Illinois now.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
But
really nice. Yeah,
I
Just
tried
kind of like
an
a tall,
orange
upright.
cultivar
I
before,
used one of those too.
and it is stunning.
Yeah, I used a little compact one that only
Mhm.
gets like 14,
18,
16
yeah.
inches tall. Yeah, super
I think I know
nice.
I can't remember the
Kind of
variety
the
name of it, but I'm
Pink to orange.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a PW. I can't remember the variety, but
so pretty.
really nice.
I'm very
long-lasting
attracted to an
blooms.
orange flower anyway.
Mhm.
But yeah, and
especially with that pink tinge to it. Yeah, it's just a really
it can
nice
kind of
color.
have a little bit of a reblooming quality too. Here we are. See, it didn't take much for us
Yep.
to go into talking.
Tangent.
Talking into the description of a plant.
Yep.
So anyway, was able to, with patience and maturity, just digging real deep for that maturity in a public environment, was able to finally figure out. And so what I said to her, because given her accent and her English, which was still very good, but not her main language.
Sure.
So instead of trying to describe to her or help her pronounce Agastache or Gostiki, because I could tell that wasn't resonating
And
with
we
her.
don't like to use that
either words.
Right?
I said, you should ask for purple hyssop
Yeah.
in the near future. I was like, whenever you're looking for this plant again, I was like, oh yeah, just ask for hyssop.
Yeah.
And she had no problem saying hyssop,
Right.
just to avoid someone else going through what I said, because who knows how someone else might react
Right.
if they are asked if they have purpleanus. It's shocking. No matter what you're doing, anyone comes up to you and looks you dead in the eye and says that to you, I dare you to not be
Thrown off guard.
not dare's the wrong word. I challenge you to not feel little, do I need help? Like,
But so you had another interaction kind of along
now
the same lines.
this dude was rude.
Okay.
But I still kept my cool with this one. And this dude comes in, he has a very thick New England accent. So Boston, New York, which probably people from Boston and New York are like, we sound nothing alike. But sorry to the rest of the U.S., you kind of do. So I don't know of what part of New England he was from.
I'm sure we sound like country folk.
Yeah,
to
we
them,
probably
so-
all, when we're saying open,
Right.
no worries. We probably all say the same, sound the same. So,
Just gonna squeeze past you.
yeah. In our Midwestern goodbyes.
Right.
But so he comes in and he's very high energy. And he's already spoken to one or two other associates and they are lost. They have no idea what this guy is trying. And so by the time I get him, which I have this lovely, I guess, what's the right word? I have this lovely luxury of being the go-to person, whether I'm managerial or not, for handling problem customers or intense customers, or when people are just simply at a loss. They're like, Ethan.
Yeah.
So I come over and I try to help this guy, and he immediately, because I think he's probably now irritable.
He's already pissed off.
Because he's spoken to
couple
two
people,
who have not been able to help him. And in his eyes, this shouldn't be a difficult request. And he comes to me, he's like, hey, where's your Jopie? I need your Jopie. I can't do, I'm not even going to attempt to do a Boston accent because it's just going to sound horrendous. He's like, hey, where's your Jopie? And here I am, and I'm trying to do it. I can't help it. So he's asking for Jopie and keeps saying Jopie at extreme intensity. He's looking for the Jopie plant, and it's common. There's no reason why you shouldn't have Jopie, and everybody has Jopie. How do you not know about this plant? I'm looking for it. He's like, they don't know what I'm talking
looking for.
I'm looking here. And he's just kind of going on. I was like, all right, I don't know what you're talking about. Now he's like even more frustrated. He's like, how do you not know this plant? He's making it very clear to everyone who didn't want to be an audience to this scenario that he is very frustrated that no one here knows what Jopie plant is, and that we should know. We're a garden center. Every garden center has it. He doesn't understand why we don't know what he's talking about, and there's no way that we don't carry this plant in some way, shape, or form. And so we finally was like, hey, we're just going to have to break it down. Tell me what it does. And finally break down. I was like, okay, he's looking for, it can get tall and it flowers usually in summer. It's a plant for pollinators. It likes wet areas. And we finally get to the point after playing 20 questions. Joe Pieweed. Got it. Okay. And I say that to him and he doesn't change. Upon I was like, oh, Joe Pieweed. He's like, yeah. Jopie.
The thing I've been asking for the whole time.
Right.
So he did not. It's like what I am saying and what
is
you're
exactly
saying
the
are
same thing.
No difference.
Tomato, celery.
Right.
It was just like,
Right.
And I was like, okay, like Joe Pieweed. Got it. Yes, we have that. We have the native over here. It gets huge. We have cultivars over here. And he is just like, yes,
apple.
Like
Like
what I've been.
He's like, I'm from Boston. I got places to
like
be.
I've been here for like 20 minutes trying to find this very common plant.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm glad you now finally know what you should have known was the demeanor I got from him. And he gets his plant and he leaves. No, thank you. No, nothing. Just more words to himself out loud and under his breath, expressing his frustration with all of us idiots at this garden center who didn't know that he was asking for this particular plant. And all I could think of was like, man, I wish more people knew the botanical name. Because if he had said Eupatorium in any accent, it would have been somehow easier to
Right.
like not a lot of other plants sound quite like Eupatorium.
Right.
So even if he said Epitorium, because it's EU, and I would have still probably been able to more quickly figure out that he was asking for Eupatorium.
Yeah.
But Jopi. Where's that Jopi? And not
Throwback to
Joe
one of my
Pye
top
weed,
six. Yeah.
Jopi plant.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, dude.
Throwback to one of my top 6 favorite perennials.
Yeah. There we go.
Yep. The dwarf version.
So those are just 2 stories of miscommunication in the garden center, and one with a very pleasant older lady with a thick European accent wanting to know about my bruised butthole, and another one with a dude from New England that's just knew better than everyone else, egregiously messing up the pronunciation of plants. To the point that 3 people who are very familiar with perennials could not understand.
The 20 questions really helps when you get something that's.
I think that's
like,
the big takeaway from this is
because even some of these plants have so many common names, especially if you get somebody coming in that maybe is in an older demographic, when it seemed like there were even more, like the spread of common names was even more so. And they're like, oh, well, my grandma called it this, and it's like, I don't know what the most popular common name for this plant was 100 years, you know what I mean? Like literally like 100 years ago.
right.
To what would be commonly used to refer to it as now, separate of the Latin. And the 20 questions really helps if you can get like a rough leaf shape, flower color, kind of flower structure. Is it a single? Is there a clump? Is it,
And I do like playing
size
those
of the
games.
plant.
I do kind of enjoy that challenge when people would come into a garden center and they were like, I'm looking for. The only time it was frustrating when they would just be like, I just know
it's green.
Yeah,
the leaves
there's
are
like-
green, and like it gets a flower.
And I was like, what color? I was like, I don't know.
It's red. No,
Pinkish,
it's
purple. Maybe pink, red, or purple. I'm like,
like,
what does it look like?
all
I
of
don't know.
them?
I've only seen it from a distance.
Right. Yeah.
Or they'll bring a picture that's taken 200 feet away that they zoomed in from because they didn't want to walk into their neighbor's yard, or they were driving, so it's kind of blurred. Like that. I'm like, no, is that a purple anus? I don't know. So,
well, on that note,
yeah. So anyway, the 20 questions, and a good horticulturist or a good garden center staff member knows how to play 20 questions, even when presented with the most ridiculous situations, and can usually help you find. So once again, my weird stories here tie back around somehow loosely to go to an independent local garden center. Someone there will help you figure out what plant you're looking for.
Yeah, on our previous episode where we talked about the importance of professional horticulturists, there you go. They're the ones to hit with the 20 questions game and try to identify what plant you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah, a little quick episode. Again, thank you so much for subscribing to the Take It or Leave It podcast. Your guys' support really does help us keep the show going. As always, if you guys have ideas for future episodes, topics that you'd like to hear us talk about or go more in depth on, always open to ideas from you guys. If you have comments, any kind of feedback, we'd love to hear from you guys, because again, it's your guys' contributions to the show that help us keep everything rolling and moving forward, and us getting more content and more education about the horticulture world out to everyone. So thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
And with that, this has been the Take It or Leave It podcast. I'm Nick Farringdon.
I'm Ethan Wise.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Toodles.
Bye.